Today is June 26th, 2021. My name is John Swain, and I'll be conducting this oral history interview with Henry Vasquez Perez, a Marine veteran of Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. Today, Henry will be sharing his experiences serving with Bravo Company 4th LAR Battalion in Helmand Province, Afghanistan from 2009 to 2010. This interview is pursuant to the practicum requirements for American Military University's Master's degree in Public History. It will also be submitted to the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress for the benefit of future generations. Henry, please state your name and birth date for the record.
My name is Henry Vasquez Perez. Date of birth is July 8, 1985.
Where were you born?
I was born in Bolivia. It's a country in South America.
Who are your parents?
My parents are, my father is Wilson Vasquez. My mother is Flora Vasquez.
When did you and your parents come to the United States?
My dad came here in the late 90s. I moved here in 1997, April.
How did you and your parents feel about coming to America?
They were happy. They felt it was a good opportunity for myself and my siblings to move here to America.
Tell me a little about your life before the military.
I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was right off the high school, so I was pretty much a high school kid, average high school kid.
Did you have any family members who were veterans?
No.
Do you remember when you first showed interest in the military?
I remember when I was growing up in Bolivia, they had the Gulf War going on, and it was very televised. I used to see soldiers running around the desert. They used to televise airstrikes, and that got my attention. I remember being little, telling my mom, "That's what I want to do," and she said, "No, you don't want to do that." But that actually drew my attention, and I started playing with toy soldiers and pretending to be an American soldier growing up in Bolivia.
Do you remember where you were on September 11th, 2001?
Yes, I was actually I was in history class, and the principal came on the PA, and he said to keep all the students kind of a lockdown when the next period started. So it was English class, and we were there. The teacher was in tears when I saw her. At that time, I didn't see what was going on the TV yet, and then I started paying attention, and that's when I saw that one of the towers was burning, and all of a sudden, a lot of my classmates started to cry. Tears were coming down their eyes, and everybody was very, very scared, very, very nervous.
How did the news strike you once you learned about it?
I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. Nobody knew if it was an accident or a terrorist attack, but I remember shortly after, because I went to high school in Alexandria, very close to the Pentagon. We actually we felt the shock wave of the explosion when the plane hit the Pentagon. And when I asked my teacher, what was that? And she said, I think that might be the jets responding to New York, but later we found out that it was actually the plane crashed into the Pentagon.
Why did you choose to join the Marine Corps?
Well, throughout high school, I was in Army JROTC, so I already made up my mind that I wanted to join the military. I was going to go for the Army first, but I like the Marines because they're the best. The recruiter showing a bunch of motor videos and the uniform, and just like my fellow classmate Agame Dorgu said, they did a better job recruiting people, and that's why I enlisted.
What did your family think about your decision to join?
They were not happy at all. At that time, there was Iraq going on, and it was on the news all the time, ideas going off, soldiers getting killed. And no, she wasn't happy. She actually kicked the recruiter out of my house when he came to meet my mom and my dad.
Were you able to choose your job in the military?
Yes. I knew that I always wanted to be in the infantry.
And what did you think about becoming a rifleman?
I think it was the coolest job in the world. That was probably really one of the first times I held a rifle. I thought it was cool. Just like in the movies, I thought, and I have this rifle, they're going to teach me how to use it, they're going to teach me all these tactics. I said it was going to be awesome.
When did you ship to boot camp?
It was about 2 weeks after I graduated high school. It was June of 2004. That's when I shipped to Paris Island.
And what brought you to Bravo Company 4th LAR?
As part of the recruiting, my recruiter at the time brought me to Bravo Company. He said, "Hey, this is going to be your unit once you graduate SOI." And I got to meet a couple of the people, a couple of the Marines that were there. They showed me the instrument, they showed me the drill hall, they showed me the vehicles. I was happy.
What did you think of the unit once you checked in? Do you remember when you checked in?
When I said I checked in sometime late in December of 2004, the impression that I got was they had just returned from Iraq, so almost everybody was an Iraq veteran, and I really looked up to them. You know, those guys saw some combat over there. I felt like I was in good hands with them.
Tell me a little bit about your first several months with Bravo Company.
It was mainly just training. There were rumors going around about us going back to Iraq, and but obviously they were just rumors. And at the time, our CEO, he will come to us information and say, "Hey, word is coming up the chain of command. We may be going to Iraq." That was essentially every single time we had drill before we were released on a Sunday. It was essentially get ready, get ready, get ready. It's going to happen.
Tell me a little bit about your personal life while serving at Bravo Company before Iraq.
Oh, I was just still fresh out of boot camp. I was just working odd jobs here and there. Nothing really interesting.
Who were some of your friends that you served with in the unit?
Oh, it was actually very sweet. I went Dorgood. I went to high school together. Ivano Rodriguez, we went to high school together. So I had two of my high school buddies serving with me, which made it very awesome.
When did you first hear for sure that you'd be going to Iraq?
I remember one day we went to the armory, and all of a sudden all the N4s had ACOGs. And that's when somebody says, "Official, we are going to Iraq." And sure enough, we got information, and the CO said, "We're going to Iraq."
Do you remember telling your family that you'd be going?
Yes, I did, and my mom just started to cry when I told her that.
Did you know what your mission was going to be before you left?
Yes, it was actually kind of weird. We were going to be on boats, on Cirques, which are small unit rebreathing crafts. I was going to be part of the ground combat element. Some of the people that were crewmen took positions of both captain and coxswains. Some were machine gunners, and that was going to be my mission, just essentially be an infantryman, but this time on boats instead of an LAV.
Did you have an option to go on this deployment?
Well, initially during that time, there was an option that you can either go to Iraq or I don't remember. I know there was another deployment. Oh, the Horn of Africa, but at the time, everybody was essentially made to go to Iraq.
How old were you at the time?
I was 20.
What was your rank and billet?
I was a lance corporal and I was a rifleman.
Tell me a little about DSU.
DSU was a unit that was a branch of the small unit rebreathing craft, which I didn't know that the Marines at the time had a small craft company. And DSU was, our mission was essentially going to be patrol the waterways of Iraq, conduct interdictions, support adjacent units in whatever they needed.
Is there any event that happened in Iraq, in your first couple of weeks that sticks out to you?
I want to say the first time we went on a mission is when we took contact from the enemy. I remember our mission was to land on an island and try to find a weapons cache. And there was another element to our east that was also conducting a sweep. And the enemy started shooting at us. But for some reason, I thought that they probably didn't know we were in that island. They were just probably trying to engage the unit that was right next to us.
Did you have any mentors with the unit at this time?
Yes, I did. My team leader at the time, Chris, he he was a mentor to me. He will always talk to us as a team. We'll always check our weapons, make sure everything was squared away. It was the first time he was a team leader. In my mind, I always looked up to him. He was a good leader.
Were you close with David Smith during the deployment?
I wasn't close to him, but I did see him during the World Cup. The first time I met him was when I was in Quantico, the range. And the first time I said, this guy knows what he's talking about. He was very knowledgeable. He had a presence. And I knew that this guy, he was a Marine down to the core. He loved the Marine Corps. Very professional, took care of his guys.
What part of Iraq were you in?
I was assigned to Haditha Dam for the first 3 months of the deployment, and then my team got transferred to Ramadi for the final 3 months.
Do you remember, did anything change from when you started to where you left Iraq with the AO?
To be honest with you, towards the end, the enemy became more of a, they were really trying to get us in terms of there were increase of firefights, taking pouches at us. They actually tried to ID one of our boats by putting an ID in the water, which sunk when it went off. So I think the longer we were there, I felt like the enemy was trying to essentially see how can we get these guys on a boat.
Did you have any close calls over there?
Yeah, we had a couple of gunfights. We had an ID that went off. One time we were coming back from a mission and we took contact, and I tried to fire my saw, which I was assigned to, and it jammed. So I immediately took cover, and another of my team members, Lance Corporal Solis, got on top of me and started shooting, and he's the one that gave me the ringing in the ears, I believe.
When did you first get news that you might be coming home?
There were rumors around, I want to say, 3 or 4 months into the deployment that the Navy may be coming soon to take over the mission. But final word, I mean, I was always told that don't believe anything they say until you see somebody from the unit coming in, kind of get a feel of the AO. And sure enough, we sooner than later, one of their Navy commanders came in just to see what was going on, and he said, "Hey, we're coming sooner. We're ahead of schedule." We were like, "Sweet, you can have it."
Anything else that sticks out to you about the Iraq deployment?
I think one of the things that I always remember is when I went to church one day, they had a wall of fallen Marines and soldiers. So as I'm walking down, looking at the wall, I see one of my friends that I went to boot camp with, Lance Corporal Manukian. And when I saw that photo, I was like, wow, I can't believe it. You're gone. I remember him because when I was in boot camp, he came to my bunk and he said, "Hey, I'm as a Spanish guy, got to stick together," kind of that. So I always remember him. But when I saw that photo, I remember it ruined my night.
Do you remember when you came home from Iraq?
Yeah, I remember. We landed, and we had an escort, police officers that took us all the way to our center. And I remember I was on the phone with my dad, and my dad said, "Hey, you forgot to give us the address." But we see a bunch of cops following some buses. So I said, "Well, just jump behind the bus." And my dad said, "Well, there are cops behind it." Well, they'll understand. They're probably going to figure out that you're probably going to pick me up, and that's what they did. And sure enough, they let him cut through.
How were you welcomed?
I remember seeing my mom. That was the first person I saw, and I remember she looked different. She had lost a lot of weight, and she gave me a hug, and she said, "Son, don't ever leave." And I said, "I promise I'll never leave again."
Did you have any encounters with people who were protesting the war after you came back?
Most of the protesting that I saw was mainly just on the news. I didn't see them in person. It was just all on the news, all on the media.
So what did you do Between the time you came back from Iraq and when you got the news that you'd be deploying to Afghanistan, what'd your life look like?
I actually was going to school, to college, taking some classes on it. That's what I was doing.
And what was your family situation at that point?
At that point, my family was under the impression that, hey, you're probably not going to go away anymore. So they were actually pushing, hey, you need to find a wife, start a family, get an education, get a good job. So they were pushing for me to, like, essentially they were looking forward for me to leave the military at that point.
When did you first receive word that you'd be deploying to Afghanistan?
I remember I was in class, and there were also rumors going around, but one of the rumors was, hey, if you went to Iraq, you're not going to go to Afghanistan. Cool. So I was in class, and I got a text message, and the text message said, we just got activated. And I was like, okay, I guess we're going.
When did you tell your parents?
I waited about a week before telling them, because I remember the conversation that I had with my mom and me telling her that I wasn't going to go away. So I actually thought about lying to her and telling her that I was going to go maybe to, like, Japan or somewhere else to be stationed.
How did you feel before going on your second deployment?
Honestly, I was nervous, because what I started doing is I've noticed that there was less coverage about Iraq, and there was more coverage about Afghanistan. So I was really paying attention about what was going on over there. I was following the news. NATO had a dedicated website where you will log in and you will see what NATO was doing throughout different AOs. And to me, I was, hey, they're doing cool. Everybody's working together. But at the same time, I will every now and then I will find videos online of soldiers and Marines being blown up by IEDs, and tell it that the Taliban are making videos of these complex ambushes. And I was like, wow, this may actually be serious.
Did going to Afghanistan feel different than going to Iraq, just the idea of it?
I felt like it was different because, unlike Iraq, we were actually, want to be with LAVs and doing an LAR mission.
How old were you at this time?
I was 23, I believe.
What was your rank in billet?
I was a lance corporal, but I ended up getting promoted halfway through deployment to corporal, and I was still a rifleman.
What did they tell you about Bravo Company's mission in Afghanistan?
They told us that we were going to be on the LAVs conducting different operations throughout the AO, denying enemy movement, and as well as conducting interdictions.
What did you do to personally prepare yourself physically and mentally for the deployment?
I started reading about Afghanistan. I started reading about the Soviets. I started, once again, watching those videos from NATO. I started watching what the enemy was doing. I really started paying attention what the Taliban was doing and all the tactics. There were people in my neighborhood that came back from Afghanistan. I would talk to them. And, they will tell me the same thing. The Taliban, they love their IEDs, so be careful.
Did the build-up training sufficiently prepare the company for the deployment? Do you remember anything about it?
I do. I believe that it was fast. Sometimes I feel like we were doing more checking the boxes than actual training. It felt very rushed, in my opinion.
When did you leave for Afghanistan?
I believe it was sometime in late October of 2009.
Who did you leave behind?
It's my mom, my dad, essentially all my siblings.
How did you say goodbye?
I told my mom, hey, I'm going to be in good hands. I remember trying to downplay the mission, telling her that, hey, we have all these nations that are going to be with us, unlike Iraq. I tried to make her feel better about the deployment, but obviously that doesn't work because mothers, they can see right through your lies. She knew it was dangerous. She was watching the news, and she just told me to be careful.
How did you get to your area of operations in Helmand Province?
We flew from Maryland, I believe, to Maine, from Maine to Germany. From Germany, we flew to another base in Eastern Europe, and from there we flew into Camp Leatherneck, Afghanistan.
What were your first impressions of Helmand Province?
I said, wow, there's a lot of desert here. There was a river. The river was very vegetated, but then you look around, there's desert. And I remember there was a huge mountain. I believe it was to the east, which I thought it looked pretty cool.
What was the mission that Bravo Company was expected to conduct at their AO here in Helmand Province?
When we got there, we talked to the unit that was there, 2nd LAR, and essentially they were doing foot patrols around their AO. They had a vehicle control point in Shabu, which was our platoon's area of operation. So we did 1 week at the vehicle control point, which we call our vacation, because that was a time to decompress, joke around a little bit. All we did was check vehicles, which there were barely any at the time. Other times we were doing foot patrols, conducting night observations for enemy activity in the area.
What were your thoughts on the mission at the time?
To be completely honest, I was just saying, well, I guess this is what an LAR battalion does. But then I had to remind myself, well, we're not doing an LAR mission. We're just conducting more like a regular line platoon operation and going on missions, talking to the locals, making our presence known, security patrols. We just wanted to let the enemy know that we were out there.
Did the transition with 2nd LAR go according to plan?
I think it did. One of the things that I remember is looking at a room at the combat outpost and seeing shrapnel wounds in the wall. And one of the guys said, yeah, one of our guys was killed here because he stepped on an IED. And the first time I said, you guys didn't clear it, he was, yeah, we did. But he actually got blown up weeks after they cleared it. And, talking to one of the corporals, he told us, if you guys push further south or west, he flat out told me, you guys are going to lose people.
Do you remember the first mission you went on?
Our first mission was actually a very short one. We had a local that came, and he brought his sick child. So myself, Doug Garcia at the time, we walked to a couple of meters to meet the kid, and Doug Garcia provided some medical assistance to the kid. I believe he has a kind of stomachache diarrhea, and we were able to help him.
What did an average day look like for the first several weeks?
We were on rotations. You were doing base security, meaning a guard tower or an LAV. If you were not doing that, you were conducting foot patrols. If you were not doing that, you were conducting OPs, observation posts at night. Once again, checking for the Taliban.
Does anything that happened in those first couple of days, couple of weeks, stand out to you now?
I think just I used to love going at the vehicle checkpoint. I used to enjoy talking to the Marines, cooking different things, MREs, cooking things with the locals, eating a lot of Spam. That was our gourmet food over there. I just remember the cooking, and I thought it was very enjoyable.
What was your relationship with the locals like?
It all depended where you went. And some of them didn't like us. Some of them loved us. And we had one that will come to us and say, hey, there might be an ID here. He will give us good intel. And I believe if you went south, we had this village called Star Trek Village. And most of our rocket attack came from the south. So we knew that people in that area were probably Taliban sympathizers.
What about the Afghan security forces you worked with?
We were with the Afghan border police, and those guys were poorly trained. They did not have discipline. Some of them were good, but the majority were very, I believe that they didn't want to work. I was just a paycheck for them. And some of them I believe towards the end they didn't want to go on patrols anymore. They didn't want to carry the ECM, the electronic countermeasure, the backpack that we had. And I remember me asking him to a translator, hey, what did you want to carry this? You don't even wearing body armor. And he pretty much just told me, hey, Americans are built better than Afghans.
Did you have any translators you worked with?
Yes, we had Gani was one of our translators. He was local Afghan. And then we had another one called Jay. He was also one of our translators.
What did you do with any free time you had?
Mainly I would just play computer games, write letters, sleep, eat food.
What was the biggest threat you faced?
At the time, it was IEDs and rocket attacks.
When was your first contact with the enemy?
We didn't have contact with the enemy. One of the squads in my platoon did, but I believe their way of saying hi to us was sending rockets our way. That was pretty much the extent of the contact that we had.
Were there any patrols or operations that stand out to you?
I want to say Operation Western Light.
And that was in January 2010.
Correct.
It was the first large-scale offensive against the Taliban, going out to the west to clear the Tagaz Bazaar. Do you remember, can you talk a little bit about the goal of Operation Western Light?
The goal was to go over there and clear the bazaar, make our presence known and establish another combat outpost to facilitate us conducting operations further south. That was our mission.
What was your role in the operation?
My role was essentially just to be a rifleman. I had a ECM. Well, it was a minesweeper. I was out there essentially looking for IDs. We came from the ground, clearing the way. We had some guys that were inserted via Ospreys in the bazaar. That was first platoon, actually third platoon, and that was very. I thought that was a very cool mission.
Did the operation go smoothly?
I think it went as planned, in my opinion. But obviously, every operation has its own hiccups.
On January 23rd, 2010, Bravo Company's 3rd Platoon was struck by a dismounted suicide bomber as they occupied their patrol base in the Zeranda-Calais Bazaar. The platoon suffered mass casualties. Can you tell me your recollections of that event?
That day, I had just gotten off watch, and I took my gear off and went back to the patrol base. And I remember being tired that morning, and the first person that I saw was Doc Chi. He came to me. He said, "Hey, do you want to grab a soda?" And I was like, "Well, where?" And he said, "Well, in the bazaar. They sell sodas over there. Do you want to come with me?" Yeah, I was very tired, and I said, "Hey, Doc, listen, I'll meet up with you over there. Let me just get some sleep, but I'll head over there as soon as I wake up again." I remember Sergeant Passwater just waking me up and say, "Hey, there is maybe a suspicious vehicle outside." At the time, there was an LAV. It was manned by another Marine. He said, "Hey, can you go check out the vehicle?" So I put my gear back on, and I went to check the vehicle. I found it very odd that when I got there, the vehicle wasn't moving, and eventually made a U-turn, and I said that was weird. And then there were people in the area, and they were sitting down, and like they were waiting for something to happen, and I thought maybe they're waiting for the market to open. Minutes later, I heard an explosion, turned around, saw a plume of smoke. I yelled at the Marine that was in the LAV, "Hey, get the comms up, find out what's going on." I guess he got confused. He gave me the thumbs up, and I said, "Well, it's probably nothing." And then that's when I realized the Marines were running towards the bazaar, and I said, "This isn't right." So I started running back to the patrol base.
How did you cope with the loss of your friends during the deployment?
During the deployment, I was very angry. I was very I felt like I couldn't let my emotions out. I had to put it in a box for later. Some of the Marines, I could tell just by the look on their faces that they were having a hard time. I talked to a couple of them, and talking to them essentially just we concluded that it's probably better for us to put it away for now and focus on the mission.
When did Operation Western Light end?
It ended, to be honest with you, I think it ended once we got attacked. Once we got attacked, we were doing a lot more kind of on overwatch positions. We took the platoon that got hit out of the bazaar into a patrol base. We shut down the whole bazaar, and we waited for Alpha Company to come and relieve us.
What did the company do after the operation?
After the operation, essentially we moved to Cop McDonald for a little bit, and we were there before we moved back to Cop Payne.
What was the new mission once they got to Cop Payne?
The new mission was interdictions. They told us that we were going to go out there, conduct an LAR mission, interdict vehicles denying enemy movement, and essentially conduct security patrols. Make sure that the Taliban knows that we're still out there denying them the movements and conducting missions.
Did you feel the company was well suited for that mission?
I had a lot of confidence in Bravo Company because we had this ability to adapt to whatever mission was thrown at us. So vehicle-wise, a couple of times the vehicles went down. I think we could have done a better job at that. But operating in the desert is very challenging because maintenance-wise, it was a nightmare.
What was your role within that mission?
I have been promoted to corporal at the time. I took over the team, and we were just doing regular rifleman infantry around the area, patrolling, doing OPs every now and then. If you were not outside the wire, you were doing base security, and you were watching the G-Boss, essentially.
Do any of the events over the next couple of weeks stand out to you?
I've noticed that the battalion kept getting hit. It almost looked like they were getting hit almost every month. We had somebody getting hurt, or we had somebody getting killed. And when that was happening, in my mind I was thinking, it's getting worse ever since January. I remember me telling one of my friends, you know what, I think I already gonna accept the fact that we're gonna get hit again. So when it actually happens, it doesn't hurt as much.
On March 24th, Bravo Company received word that their battalion sergeant major, Robert Cottle, was killed along with his driver, Lance Corporal Rick Centani, when their vehicle struck an improvised explosive device. Do you remember when you first received the news?
Yes, I remember. I was in the chow hall when that word came out, and I couldn't believe it. The sergeant major was this guy that was very professional, very good leader. He was an LAPD operator back home. So I felt very angry. I felt these cowards, they don't want to face us. They want to put bombs in the ground and hit us. Then obviously sadness came. I was very sad. And then more details came about how he died and how his remains looked. And I was even more angry after I found that out.
How long did Bravo Company's interdiction mission last?
It lasted the last 3 or 3.5 months of the deployment. I was the last portion of it.
When did you first get the news that you'd be rotating home?
I want to say sometime in April is when it became sort of official that we were coming home. At the time, the relieving unit was already sending their advent to us, and I was it almost felt like I was happy to be home, but at the same time I felt guilt, feeling happy because I knew we were not bringing everybody home.
Did you feel that you had accomplished the mission that you set out to complete?
Um, that's kind of a hard question because I felt like the things that we accomplished were almost immediately destroyed because the Taliban had this idea of just waiting and waiting and waiting, and I felt like once we left, they came back again.
Did you feel that you had made a difference?
I would like to say yes. Um, some of the locals were very happy we were there. I always felt like our mission was to protect them more than anything else. Um, so, I mean, I always care about the locals because because I come from a third world country, so I know what it's like to not have anything essentially. Um, I used to look at the kids and I always used to feel sad for them. These kids are walking around without shoes. Clearly, they're malnourished. Um, when I came home, I felt like, I, I think I made a difference.
When and how did you leave Afghanistan?
We flew out of Copain um, to Camp Leatherneck. From Camp Leatherneck, we flew to Kyrgyzstan. From Kyrgyzstan to Germany. From Germany to Maine. From Maine to Maryland.
When did you arrive back home?
I want to say it was sometime in the middle of May of 2010.
And how were you welcomed?
Very similar. I remember landing, and I remember seeing police officers outside the gate, and I remember seeing a line of motorcycles outside the gate, and they gave us a nice escort from the airport to our center.
What are some of the things you remember most about your service in Afghanistan?
The people that I served with, I always remember them. I remember a certain Marine cutting his finger and having field surgery. I remember Doug Garcia making moo noises to the cows, and one of the cows decided to follow Doug Garcia for a while. Um, I want to say that the people is the most thing that I remember.
When did you become a U.S. citizen?
I became a U.S. citizen shortly before deploying to Afghanistan.
What are your thoughts about the war in Afghanistan as a whole?
Uh, I was a little bit surprised that we're actually negotiating with the Taliban. Um, I believe that that's a bad idea, but that's above my pay grade. Um, when I heard that the negotiations were open, it almost felt like everything that we have done as a battalion, as a company, went right out the window.
Do you have any regrets?
No.
How did your service in Afghanistan affect the rest of your time in the military? What did you learn from the deployment?
I actually got out the following month. Was my last drill, and it was bittersweet leaving the company. To be honest with you, the last person I talked to was my platoon commander, and he essentially said, "Hey, listen, I'm not even going to try to retain you, and we had a rough deployment. So if you want to stay, you can stay, or if you want to leave, you can leave." And I decided to leave.
How did your military service influence your career after the military?
After the military, I was craving the brotherhood again that I had, and I believed that the best place to get that again was either be a first responder, either be a firefighter or a police officer. I chose a career as a police officer. We have the same camaraderie that we had in Afghanistan. We take care of each other, and I think that thanks to my time in the Marine Corps, and thanks to the Sergeant Major Cottle, and even thanks to Major West, who also was a DA agent, is that I chose the path that I am right now.
Do you feel that your country is grateful for your service?
I would like to say yes. I think they are.
Well, Henry, thank you very much for taking the time to sit for this interview. As you know, this interview will be submitted to the Library of Congress to be preserved for the benefit of future generations. It's possible that your descendants will be watching this interview in the future. Is there anything you'd like to say to them who may be viewing this in the future?
I want to let them know that service to one nation is an honor. And if they ever consider doing that, I believe that they should do it. There's no greater honor to serve this nation that has given us a lot to my family, and it's continuing to give my family. I believe that this country is the best country in the world.
Henry, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.